Hi, everybody. You got David Abrams here, along with my special guest today, Jack Bourne, who is the co-founder of DeadlineFunnel and a variety of other SaaS tools as well. I'll let him give his own bio here in a second. But I just want to welcome everyone today. It's a little bit of an earlier show. I know it's probably on the West Coast. It's only like 7:30. But I appreciate everyone for taking some time out of their day to come meet with us. As usual, we'll go through a pretty incredible story, a pretty incredible journey from Jack. And I'm excited because you founded so many different SaaS already and some really amazing stuff. And you do SaaS in the same kind of way I do, which is looking at ways to save time, save energy, automation-based tools. So I'm excited to hear and learn from you along the way. And I'm really excited to get started. So, hey, everybody, again, we have public chat over here on your right side. So say hi to us. Have questions for the end. We'll make this totally interactive with everyone. And Jack, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, and I really appreciate being here. And it was awesome to meet you at Todd Brown's event. I think the way that we met, it's always so gratifying to me. One of the best things about doing what we do is when someone comes up to me at an event and says like, hey, I just want to let you know I use your software and it's awesome. It's changed my business. And that's, you introduce yourself in that way. And I had that experience with several other people. And it's just, that's one of the most satisfying things about being in this business and doing what we do.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible way. Hey, Derek, what's going on? And it's an incredible, that at the end of the day, we're not creating tools for ourselves. And I think a lot of times, especially in the internet marketing and make money online spaces, I hate to use it as an example, but I think a lot of people look to create software and products with their end goal in mind, with like their own personal benefit. But it's not like you do this, we're really focused on this, which is creating a best benefit for the end user. And when you can create something that the end user gets a lot of value from, you're creating something really powerful.
Yeah.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to continue that was, I just love it. One of the things that I think we talked about this at Todd Brown's event as well, that one of the things that we added in the past 6 to 8 months, which initially I was skeptical about, was live chat. And just, so there's pros and cons to doing live chat, but one of the huge benefits, there's a lot of them, but one of them is that you get the opportunity after you help someone directly right there. We get all the time just this amazing feedback. So some of the feedback is about, thank you for the software. The software is amazing. But the other one, which is kind of funny, but it's sad at the same time, is people are so thankful to have that instant support. Because there's a lot of websites out there, a lot of software companies where they have the live chat box, but you type something in and there's crickets, and you might hear back 6 hours later or 12 hours later. And so one of the things that we found was that by putting in the time and the resources to train our team and to get them up to speed and to add more people to our team in order to actually make that happen, we have better onboarding experiences, and it's a great marketing tool. And so we don't do a whole lot of, there's not a whole lot of people who are on the website asking pre-sales questions, but for the people who start the free trial, you probably can agree with this, that especially with SaaS, it's different than selling other digital products like selling, a training course or something like that, because when someone agrees to start the free trial and they put in their credit card information, it's not like, okay, ring the bell, the sale's done. It's like, okay, now the work begins, because they have to get a result during that trial, or else they're gonna churn, they're gonna cancel. So we've found that the live chat has helped tremendously, and it takes a lot of work. It also takes patience to see the results pay off. It's sort of like I compare it to working out. No matter how hard you work out the first week, you're not going to see too many results. It's what you do week after week after week after week, and so then you start to see the benefits after doing it for a fair amount of time. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree, and I think sometimes the core values can be so simple in a company. Providing great customer support, even if it's not like early on 100% scalable or easy to do, even if it's your time that's being put in. but creating a product that gives a great experience, having an easy onboarding experience, those small things I think are so often overlooked because people are focused on, maybe even the financials or just marketing and sales and stuff like that, that you miss the opportunity to create such a great experience that people want to recommend the product or they want to use the product. And at the end of the day, those things often matter more than just getting in users, because then you could possibly have a high churn on the back end, right? So just because you get in users doesn't mean they're staying or they're becoming great lifetime customers. So I couldn't agree more. I think that support for most companies is incredibly overlooked and extremely valuable. And for us as a webinar platform, one of our big pillars is like transparency and trust and a great experience. And we've done the exact same thing. We put a lot of investment into support and making sure people have a great support staff behind them. But I love that. And before we go too far into the SaaS space right now and we jump there, I want to take a step back, Jack, and I want to ask you. I know where you are right now. I know the amazing softwares that you've built, and I want you to talk about them in just a little bit. But I think it's important to know kind of how you got here, the journey that you went on to even reach this point. Where did you start? How did you get started in software to begin with? How did you even get into this space? What did your life look like?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for well over a decade, and so I'll try to abbreviate this down. But basically, so I was working. So I live in Florida, just like you do, and so I was living and working in a place called Ponte Vedra, which is just south of Jacksonville. I was working for Merrill Lynch, and after working as a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch for like 3 years, I went to work for a small startup who was actually a client of Merrill Lynch, and that was the last job in corporate America that I ever had. And I'm actually thankful now in hindsight that this boss and I butted heads so much. And really, I really hated his leadership style. I hated his management style. And so it came to a boiling point one day, and we had an argument. Doors were slammed, things were said, and I got on the phone with my wife and I said, "Okay, I'm out of work now." And she said, "All right, we'll figure it out." But in true entrepreneurial style, it was jumping out of the window and figuring out how to build the plane before you hit the pavement. And so what I did was the short version is that I went and I purchased some code online. There was this website back then called Hot Scripts. I think it's still around, but I bought a $70 PHP script online, which was going to become a job board. And so I decided I was going to set up a job board in the same industry that I had just left. And I spent a year, I did almost everything wrong. I spent a year building that thing up, and there was no minimum viable product. Like lean startup was, not yet codified and created. This is before Jeff Walker came out with his product launch formula. So I didn't really know at all what I was doing. So my wife and I were making ends meet. We didn't have kids. We didn't have a whole lot of bills. So we're making ends meet. But after about a year of working on this website, my wife said, "All right, look, it's really time to try to figure out if this has just been an interesting hobby or if we can actually make money with it." And I said, "Okay, you're right." So I sent out the first email, which was going to be a series of emails. And then, again, this was before Jeff Walker's product launch formula or anyone teaching how to do a product launch. I just figured out, okay, if I'm going to make this work, I need to price it at X so that I can, I either wanted to fail miserably and I have to go back to work, or I wanted to support my lifestyle. And so the smart thing was that I figured out the pricing based on what I needed, not what I was comfortable charging. And so one of the things I did was I sent out an email saying, okay, this is going to be the charter membership, and here's how it works, et cetera, et cetera. And I sent it out, and I think one company, so it was kind of B2B, so one company signed up, and the rest was crickets. I'm like, oh my God, I've just wasted a year of my life. And so my wife and I got on the phone. We started smiling and dialing. That really didn't turn up anything. And so after about 4 days, I said, okay, I'm going to keep my word. I'm shutting the thing down. I said that this was the deadline to sign up. So I start to turn off everyone's access, and all of a sudden the emails start coming in. Hey, what happened to my access?
Oh, wow.
Well, you didn't pay. So within 24 hours, 28 grand had come in. And
Wow.
so that was my first jump into the entrepreneurial world. It was also my first exposure to the power of deadlines and how it really helps people get over procrastination, and that human beings will procrastinate, to the end of time unless you give them a deadline.
So can I
But
ask you
yeah.
before? Can I ask you? So these people that weren't signing up, did they get the emails and they
Mhm.
just ignored it because they didn't realize there was a scarcity-driven deadline and they just thought they could ignore it, or they thought there was going to be no
Well,
consequence?
yeah. So, remember, I said it was B2B. So one of the other factors that was going on was that, so I was going. So these were healthcare staffing companies, and so the
Mm.
people who were actually using the website were not the people with the corporate credit cards. And so what ended up happening was, when we shut the, so people procrastinate, and they definitely did that. But when I actually turned it off, that's when they realized, okay, if I want to keep using this website, I have to go ask the boss for the credit card and sell them on the idea of signing up for this site. So I wasn't, the people using the site were not the people that
The
ended up paying
gatekeepers.
for it. So that was the other thing that was going on. But certainly, still procrastination was at play. And again, this was not, I was not following a blueprint of here's how you do a product launch. It just seemed to make sense to me that you have, like, here's where the charter membership is, and after this time, we're going to raise prices. And so there was a deadline, and I just stayed true to it, and I cut it off, and that's when all the money started flooding in from the people who were using it and getting value out of it, but just had procrastinated and didn't pull the trigger.
That makes sense. And let me ask you this question. So you said you were a financial planner, right?
Yeah,
Financial.
I was.
How did you bought a script? How did you become? Were you the technical founder of this? Like, how did you get into the
Yeah.
development side of it? Were you hiring developers?
Yeah, so one of my great regrets is that in ninth grade, so in like eighth and ninth grade, I was big into computers. So this is gonna date me, but it is what it is. So I had, so my parents had an Apple IIe, and so like the floppies, like the floppy drives were like this size, like
Yeah.
the thing that you stick in and you flip the thing down. You can look it up online. These things existed. Um, so I was big into programming, and we had in ninth grade, and so I grew up in Miami. So I went to we had a project at the end of the year for computer class, and we were programming in what was called BASIC. And so the thing was, to create a game. And so the teacher intended for the kids to come up with like a word game, and it was just real something simple. But I wanted to create like a tank that went across the screen and shot bullets, and so I was creating that, but
Wow.
it ran out of memory on the hard drive and on the floppy disk, and so I brought it to her and I said, "Look, this is what I've created, but the thing ran out of memory." And she said, "Well, I don't know how to solve this, but you get an A." But that whole experience, like, I had hit the limit of what I could do, and that really kind of turned me off to, like, for that experience. I wish that I had kept on with it, and who knows, maybe I would have gone to Silicon Valley and founded
Google.
yeah, Google or something. But I didn't. And so there was a long period where I didn't do any real programming at all. But when I quit my job at this healthcare staffing company, so I bought the script, and the script didn't work. And so I didn't know the language that it was built in, but I had that talent. And so what I did was I went to the bookstore, and again, dating myself, so I went to the bookstore instead of buying it on Amazon. So it was like a really thick book called the PHP 4 Bible, and I still have it. Like, when we were moving from our last house to this house, my wife was like, "Okay, we got to throw out all this stuff," and she's going through my office. And I'm like, "No, you can't throw out the PHP 4 Bible book, because that's where it all started."
Right.
it's
That's
it's got
amazing.
tattered corners. So I went through page by page, going through the code and just trying to figure out, like, just trying different stuff. And that's how I learned. Like, that was my introduction to PHP. And so I got the script working and created the job board, and it was really, really ugly, but you know what, it worked.
Well, I mean, a couple of amazing lessons just from that part of the story, which is that, you got to the point where you couldn't deal with the day job anymore, and you went off on your own and you figured out how to build it on the way down. But not just that, you had to have relentless drive to say, I'm going to pick up this gigantic book and I'm going to learn this stuff. I mean, that's incredible. It says a lot to you, but I guess also your entrepreneurial spirit, which is, I'm going to build this. I'm going to do it, whatever it takes, and learn. Went out there and did it. And then, of course, you found the marketing and sales lessons near at the end, which now probably looking back for anyone who does SaaS or even funnels, that we always talk about having the minimum economical viable product or even the MVP product where you know you have something sellable prior to even building it, although you may not have even known if you were marketing to the right person early on. But anyways, I'll let you carry on with the story. So what happens now that you have $28,000 in sales? What are you doing next?
So it was a monthly recurring. So a bunch of the money came in as annuals, but then we had some monthly recurring, and so that paid for the bills. And I worked on, kept working on the site. But that was, even though I wouldn't call it SaaS, it kind of was like that was before Salesforce. Again, dating myself, but it was before Salesforce.com. But so I didn't know that I was building a SaaS product, but it was monthly recurring revenue, and I loved it. I mean, basically, for the next 5 years, the revenue was logging into my authorized.net account and running credit cards, and so, there wasn't. Another regret is that I didn't pour my heart and time into, my heart and soul and time into continuing to improve that. And eventually that kind of petered off. My passion for it went down. But at the same time, I was building other software and trying other things. I'd dabbled in affiliate marketing. And so then I was on Perry Marshall's list. I was on a bunch of lists, but I was on Perry Marshall's list. And one day he sent out an email and said, "Hey, I'm looking to hire 2 people for my team. One is going to be this copywriter, the content czar. He comes up with these weird names, but anyways, he called her content czar, and I knew immediately, okay, that's not for me. But the other one was for affiliate manager, and I didn't need a job. But I thought, okay, this would be really effing cool to work side by side with Perry Marshall. Like, I really want this. And what also was intriguing was that he was charging, I think it was either 19 or 29 bucks for just to apply. And then there was going to be a series of tests afterwards. So it was sort of like an audition. That's awesome. And he wouldn't say what the audition was about. And what was really exciting to me, I was super energized when I saw his blog post where he made this. So the email led to a blog post that was describing it, and below was the payment form, or the button to the payment form. And in the comments section, there was a whole bunch of people just lighting up the blog post, just talking about, how dare you charge $29 to apply. And I'm like, man, 29. Like, I loved it, because that was my first introduction to this whole idea that some people are stopped by the smallest little obstacle, like, an obstacle the size of a paperclip. You put it in front of them, and they're like, I don't know, like, I can't get over it. And
limiting beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And they couldn't get over their own ego and just their outrage that Perry would charge. And for me, that was great, because now I wasn't competing with 500 people. I thought, I'm probably competing against 5.
Yeah.
So I applied and went through the different things so one of the things that he had us do was, he said, here's a list of people that I do not want you to contact, but I want you to go try to drum up affiliate business. Like, go reach out to people that you think would be a good fit for my business and try to make a connection. And this was about 10 days before Christmas. And I was like, wow. Is this guy like, so that voice started creeping in. I'm like, man, this guy must be crazy. Does he know that it's like 10 days before Christmas? No one's going to answer their emails. They're all thinking about going on vacation. And then I sat back and I thought for a second. I thought, okay, well, if I had to do it, what would I do? And if I had to make this work, who would I contact? And then all of a sudden, it's like a door opened in my mind, and all these different names of people that I followed, like content providers, bloggers. I thought, okay, well, I'll reach out to this person. I just thought, I'll just give it a try. And it worked really, really well. So I got some connections. So that was a big plus, but I didn't hear anything from his team. And so then what I did was I said, okay, what I want to do is I want to, so by the way, if I'm going too deep in this story, just tell me to stop.
This is gold. I mean, I think just the fact that you said, how do I figure this out? And you kind of getting over your own limiting beliefs, that's gold right there. But yeah, keep going. So where are we next?
So one of the most powerful things, like after all those doubts creep in, is if you said, okay, Like, you don't even try to argue with it. You're like, okay, whether that's true or not, let's just play the game, go through the mental exercise. If I had to do it, if I don't do this and the dog gets shot, what would I do? Just go through the process. And so all of a sudden you come up with a whole bunch of great ideas. But the other thing was that I sent him lumpy mail. So I had seen something on Shark Tank about people where there was these people on Shark Tank where their business was where you could pay them 20 or 30 bucks and they would write a message on a ball and mail it to someone, just the ball. They would put the postage on the ball. And so I went to their website, and so I said, hey Perry, I want to bounce an idea off of you, and I put my URL with a link to with a special link to a page, and so the on the page there was a video of me basically pitching to Perry, and then the other thing that I did, which I've used from this day forward, but I don't know where I got this idea. I don't think I should say that I came up with it for myself, but the idea is really setting the criteria. So what I did was I hadn't heard from Perry's team, and I said, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to set my own criteria for them, and I don't think that they probably haven't figured out what criteria they're going to use to judge people. So what I did was I created a spreadsheet with a whole list of things that I had done. And then I put my name in the next column with check marks or the number of times that I had done, a certain thing or the results that I had gotten, and then a blank for, versus, whoever. And so it was a way I was basically giving them like, hey, if you don't have a grading system, here's a grading system that you can use. And so, I already had mine filled in, and I sent them, extra copies. But the way that I've used that, in pretty much everything that I do, and it's one of my most favorite marketing concepts, setting the criteria, is that if you can convince someone of the criteria that they should be using to make a decision or solve a problem, and it's legitimate, you can't really argue with the points that you're making, but the points that you're making also happen to, you tick all the boxes, or your service or product also ticks all those boxes. You're not pitching your product, you're educating them on how to make an informed decision. It just also so happens that those criteria lead to you. And so I said, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like what you can do is you're kind of putting them in the mindset that this is like this is not in a biased opinion. When you're talking about your own product or service, it's easy to talk yourself up or talk your product up. But in a comparison chart or say the criteria like that, you're saying, here are the facts. Here's what we have. Here's what they have. Here's how we can help you. And it's benefit driven. So you're almost kind of pulling your own bias away from it. And like you said, helping them make an informed decision.
Yeah. So I'll give you a real quick example. So once I got the recurring revenue up and running, I decided to try my hand at doing some local websites. And so one of the things that I would, is like if I was standing in front of a doctor or an architect who wanted a website, I would say, look, there's a lot of people out there who can build a very attractive website. You can pick one anywhere, but you don't really want a website. The website is the mechanism to get what you really want, which is clients. And you would see that right off the bat. They're like, wow, like no one's ever said that to me. And so I said, look, if you want to know how to get clients, you really need to work with someone who's spent their own money advertising online and actually getting clients at a break even or better. Because you don't want to just build this beautiful website, but doesn't actually bring you clients. And so it would make, I think that you should be looking for people who have actually spent their own money advertising. At the time, it was only Google AdWords. So Google AdWords to get people in the door at a profit. And so that immediately eliminated 95% of the people that they would be talking to. And so now it wasn't about who can build me the prettiest website. It's like, yeah, this guy Jack is smart. He knows that what I really want at the end of the day is more clients, and really clients are still the delivery mechanism for what I really want, which is cash coming into the bank account. So
real result.
Yeah, you can't. But if you just zoom out, you can't really argue, even though it's a self-serving criteria. You can't really argue with the logic. I mean, you can't really pick that apart and say, wait a second, that's not true. Like I want to work with someone who only builds beautiful websites and has never spent a dime of their money marketing online. So your criteria should be self-serving, but also at the same time airtight and valid.
So it's kind of setting the frame of a belief system already for you.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's
So
really cool.
Yeah, so it's setting the criteria. So just to finish the Perry story, he flew me out there. And the funny thing was that he texted me, and I'd, of course, never met Perry before. And I had this image of him as this super intelligent, kind of nutty professor kind of guy, which actually turns out to be pretty accurate. But he said, I'm driving a Nissan, a blue Nissan. And so I'm waiting. And then this guy pulls up with this brown Mazda. And I'm looking in there. I'm like, Perry? And so I get in the car. And I'm like, by the way, you told me blue Nissan. He's like, oh, yeah, I took my car in today. But like my initial thought was, this confirms everything that I thought about Perry, because he's so brilliant. He's like thinking these amazing thoughts. And so he doesn't even know what type of car he drives. But anyways, it was just that he had taken his car in. But anyways, so we were doing the interview at his house, and I met his team and everything. And I said, hey, by the way, did you get something in the mail? Thinking about this ball that I had sent him. And he's like, no, I don't think I got anything. Like, what did you send? I'm like, oh, well, you would know it if it came in. So as we're walking downstairs, Mindy, his assistant, walked in, and she had this big stack of stuff, and on top was the green ball. And I'm like, that's it. That's the thing I sent you. Yeah. It was just weird coincidence that I was right there, and she was walking in with this ball, and he loved it. But anyways, we got off on the tangent about Perry, but that was another thing. So I thought that I was going to work with Perry for about 6 months, and then move on to other things, because I'm entrepreneurial. And I told him when I signed up, I said, look, the reason why I wanted this was to network with people that to learn from you, et cetera, and really just elevate my game. But I'm not planning on doing this a long term. But I ended up doing it for 6 years, just because we really hit it off, and I became his marketing manager. Within about 6 months of working on Perry's team, every promotion that he did had my fingerprint on it in some way or another. And so some of them were mostly done by me. Others, I would just give advice. But I would say about 3.5, 4 years into it, I started really getting the entrepreneurial bug again. And so I started to dabble in code again. And so I needed a project to work on. And so one of the things I had been using Aweber for a long time, and I had seen that Aweber had really fallen behind the times with regards to marketing automation, but they had this thing called an API. And so I thought, I wonder if I could tie into that API and add in some extra marketing features and make it a little bit more similar to Infusionsoft, say. And so I started tinkering around with it, and sure enough, I could. I didn't know how they would feel about it, but I started tinkering around with it, and I went to a marketing event where a new friend of mine, Andre Chaperon, was at the event, and he had flown over from Spain, and so we met, and I said, hey, I want to show you this, and so I showed him the stuff on my laptop, and he said, man, I'm going to Mexico in 3 weeks. If you can get this to the point where I could promote it, I'll send an email out to my list. Otherwise, we'll have to wait, until I get back. And that was when deadlines. I realized the power of setting a deadline on myself. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to miss this opportunity, because I know that Andre has a really good relationship with his list, and he's super excited about it. I mean, you could just tell that he was in love with this concept. And so I sped things up and got everything ready to roll. And so he sent out an email to it, and just a flood of people came in. And that was the first group of users that came into AW Pro Tools. So I grew that for over the years, and I'm happy to say that about this time last year, I sold it off to an investor.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so when that deal was coming through, I knew that there was a big chunk of, by that time it had grown to a nice 6-figure income, and so there was a big chunk of monthly recurring revenue that was just going to go away. A bunch of money was going to go into my retirement account, but that monthly revenue was going to go away. And so I decided, all right, I'm really going to focus in on this other project that I have called DeadlineFunnel. And so that's when I really put 110% effort into that and started to grow that. And so that's one of our big focuses right now. I would say that's our main focus right now is
So let me
DeadlineFunnel.
ask, so during the time that you were doing AW Pro Tools, you decided to go into starting Deadline Funnel. So you had started it on the side as a side project?
Yeah, I had. And that was born from sort of an itch of my own that needed to be scratched, which is that I wanted to, I knew the power. So as a student of marketing and sales, I knew that urgency and scarcity are some really, is one of the most powerful principles in human psychology. And so I wanted to apply urgency to my funnels and also to Perry's funnels, but do it in a way where we weren't limited just to webinars, because there were webinar replay systems at the time. But I didn't. There were some issues that we had with that, with regards to, you know, it's a webinar replay, and do we call it live? Like it was just kind of a place where we didn't want to go. Like we wanted to have something where we weren't pretending that this was live, but at the same time there was a deadline on it, and we could use whatever funnel structure that we wanted to. It could be a series of emails, it could be a video replay, whatever it was. But at the end of it, there would be a deadline. It would be a legitimate deadline that if they missed it, they couldn't get the special deal, but it's automated at the same time. And I wasn't looking for a new project, but I went out looking for okay, someone must have built this. No one had built it. I mean, there were countdown timers, but they were just kind of cheesy little things that you'd stick on your page, and they wouldn't do, any of the stuff that I wanted it to do. And so since it didn't exist, I built it. And so that was the beginning of Deadline Funnel.
So I have a couple questions, and we're going to Deadline Funnel because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff there, but they just came to my mind during your story. So one of them was you spent 6 years with Perry Marshall. You're an entrepreneur. I can hear it from when you were younger to now. How was it working for someone? And I see it all the time, and I'm interested in myself. As an entrepreneur, I feel like a lot of times we reject working for someone else because we're not entrepreneurs of working for someone else. How was that experience for you in the fact of your learning and your ability to kind of bring AW Pro Tools and Deadline Funnel to the market? Was it easier after the learning experiences? How would you grade that? Because I think that's kind of an interesting thing about because you didn't just take a job. You went to a mentor basically and worked for them in exchange for learning and obviously getting paid. But how was that experience?
Well, so first of all, I have to give props to Perry. So Perry. So even though we don't work together, Perry is a friend of mine, and I really value that relationship that we have. And so, Perry, I'll just say real quick that Perry's a really unique guy. So I told him right up front, look, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a creator. So, the whole, here is my aim, my goal in this. So this is what I want out of this. And I'm very transparent about things. And so I just wanted him to know going in so that there wasn't a surprise. And so I was very upfront, and he always honored that and always helped push me into the spotlight whenever it was right to do so. And I also came up with some key concepts, like if his 80/20 sales and marketing book, chapter 6 is dedicated to a concept that I came up with called the tactical triangle. And it's in his book, so he kind of gets most of the credit for it. But he clearly says this is something that came from, I give credit to Jack Bourne, my marketing manager, et cetera, et cetera. So he's always been amazing at giving me credit for the things that I come up with. But working for someone else, especially Perry, really gave me instant street credibility in the sense that I was Perry Marshall's marketing manager, just Jack who, and so that was one of the things that I wanted, and really gave me the opportunity to go to events, to speak on the topics that I know about, but to be able to have the opportunity to speak on these topics and then expand my network. And so one of the most important things that came out of that relationship were either the direct introductions that Perry made, because I would go to private masterminds that he had some real private, high level stuff. And so I would get to meet everyone there. And I would even sit as almost an equal at the table, and be chiming in with my own thoughts and comments on other people's issues. And so that was a really cool opportunity. Awesome. And to hear what was going on behind the scenes, and some, I could name names of some really, really, high level thought leaders that were in these events, but not just the direct connections, but the opportunity to network. Like, for example, I met Andre at the first, no. So when I went to the first ClickBank exchange and I spoke at that event, there was another speaker there that I introduced myself to because I thought his talk was genius. Mm-hmm. Found out that he was in a mastermind with Andre. And I said, hey, would you be willing to introduce me to Andre? He introduced me to Andre. He and I hit it off because of a shared passion for lean startup concept. And that's how our friendship kicked off from there. So the reason why that was so important was because a lot of the traction that I've gotten with my SaaS products come from the people that I know. So it's a combination of a strong network that took years to put into place, mm-hmm. plus a product that's worth talking about. So when AW Pro Tools came out, it was really unique for anyone using Aweber. It was a saving grace, so they didn't have to switch to Infusionsoft or something else. DeadlineFunnel, again, a unique concept, and that was the right thing at the right time. And then my network really helped get it out to the people, to their audiences. So that's been a big traction channel for us. We've since added in paid traffic channels and other traffic channels. But I mean, that's one that has always been a huge one for me, is leveraging my network.
And that's kind of why I want to dig into it. I think it's a valuable piece of knowledge to think about, is that sometimes doing the behind the scenes work isn't just like putting paid traffic because you might have time to learn the angles, but you can literally build a large, viable business just with networking and going to events and adding value to other people. I think the other key thing that I'm really taking from this is most of these ventures that you did was kind of solving a problem that you had yourself. You were trying to scratch your own itch. You went in and you kind of validated it, and then you had a unique angle on it. So you were able to find like the unique sellability of it early on, and to know that it's not just another similar product, but there was something unique about it in some way. Like there were other timers out there, but you found a unique way to do it. And I think those are some critical parts of the story. So let's jump back to DeadlineFunnel. So when you decided to make it your core focus, what lessons did you bring forward from the previous softwares, from the experience with Perry, that you then took the DeadlineFunnel to kind of, I know you guys, grew really fast at the beginning. How did you take it there to kind of get some rocket fuel there?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it had to do with leveraging my network, but I also had some thought leaders, like for example, David Siteman Garland was one of them who stumbled onto the product early on. I didn't know David, but he saw the potential in it, and he started, without me even knowing that he was a client or that he was using it, that he started spreading the word. And so, creating something remarkable, the Seth Godin Purple Cow, is really, really powerful. But one of the things that I took away from AW Pro Tools as a lesson that I've really tried to improve with DeadlineFunnel is the churn, lowering the churn rate, and the importance of onboarding, the importance of training. And certainly we had lots of training, but just the impact that small improvements in the stick rate can have a profound effect on your revenue growth is just really, really important. The other thing is that when I was building AW Pro Tools, like I don't know if you can relate to this, but when you start building a SaaS product, so there's all these things that have to be in place for you to even have a viable business, product market fit, those sorts of things. But once you get that, there's all sorts of other issues that you may not have known that you were going to come into. So one is like server infrastructure. So I'm okay at code. I've got some brilliant coders on my team who are smarter than I am. But I quickly learned that I was going to have to get someone who understood server infrastructure and the way to set these things up properly, because one of the downsides of having a popular software is that you have to have the infrastructure that's going to support it. And what supports it in January may not support it in December. And so there were some growing pains with AW Pro Tools and some lessons learned in what to do and what not to do. And then the other lesson was the importance of building a team. Like I learned from AW Pro Tools that for me to take my business to where I wanted it to go, it was really going to be more about being able to to find talent, hire talent, and keep talent. And that's something that we all want to believe that we're just naturally good at. And some of us are better than others, but like anything, it's a skill that you have to work at, that you have to really try to do the best that you can. And I've just tried to draw on all my past experiences working in corporate America and try to do the opposite of what bosses used to do to me. And that's kind of been my guiding light.
Can you explain what some of those things are? I would love to know them.
Sure. With regards to leadership and management?
Yeah, I think that's a key thing. I mean, it drives everything.
So every day, so I borrow from anything that I feel like is going to work. So for example, we borrow from Scrum, from Lean, from Agile, but we don't do any of them, in the purest, strictest form. If a Scrum expert were to come sit in on our meetings, they'd be horrified. But but some of the things that we do that we borrow from Scrum are the daily stand-ups. So every day of the week we're having either a short stand-up meeting, or sometimes we need to discuss something and go into more detail. But it's the heartbeat of our daily schedule is that we meet, we talk, because a lot of my team works remotely. But it's also good just to have that meetup to talk about what we're working on today and those sorts of things. But in terms of leadership, I'm going to use some cliched words that I hate hearing, but I've really empowered my team to give their ideas, and I honestly remind them, look, you guys are, as far as the code goes and the things that need to change on the server and in the code base, you guys are in the deep end of the pool, and I'm hanging out in kind of the kiddie pool. Like I understand what you guys are talking about, and I know enough to be able to bring the questions to the table to say, have you considered this? Have you thought about that? But when it comes to actually the best ideas in terms of how to tackle a problem or take advantage of a certain situation, in terms of my software developers, I really rely on them. And so they know that I'm open to hearing what they have to say. So for example, the last job that I had at the healthcare staffing company, and this was true at Merrill Lynch as well, a lot of times the boss would call everyone into a meeting and say, hey, let's get some ideas on the table. But really what they wanted was validation of their own ideas. Like they didn't actually want original ideas. And the few times that I came up with original ideas or played devil's advocate for against an idea, just to say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? In a helpful spirit, but still trying to kind of shoot holes in it to just say, look, let's think about these different things before we actually put it into action. I became quickly the pariah, and I was marked for death in terms of advancement in the company. Which long term was good, but it was I always remember how it felt to be told, hey, we want your ideas, and then to have them shot down.
So that's a very interesting. I think that I'm the same way. I do the exact same thing, and I think it's so powerful. But like you said, it's the word empowering your people. But it's also, and I used to think this is that having a meeting and not saying anything, or having a meeting and listening to other people give ideas and you just waiting for your turn to speak, could often show weakness. Like you're not smart enough to be involved in a conversation, or you're not good enough to be sitting at the table. Like I used to have those limiting beliefs. And what I really realized is that sometimes, letting the experts talk about what they're good at, and then, like you said, chiming in with value where you can, but just listening, letting other people have those discussions and come up with the ideas and bring their greatness to the table. Like if you're hiring someone, you want them to be great in their area of expertise. And I shouldn't be smarter than you in any particular field. If you're getting hired for something in the company, like you should tell me what to do. I'm probably the stupidest one on the entire team. Like I want everyone to have great ideas, and my job is to listen and to maybe just kind of move them around in the right order, or just kind of empower them to feel better about themselves, or whatever it is. But I think that's such a key aspect of leadership that so many people miss, and I absolutely love that.
Yeah. I really have. So one of the scariest but also liberating moments of my journey was when I hired my first software developer and realized, holy cow, like even though I'm at the top of my game in terms of say PHP code, this guy's
Mhm.
light years ahead of me. And that's a good thing. Like it's scary, but at the same time, once you get over the ego shock, it's
Mhm.
it's it's really, really liberating because this person is on my team. He's helping to
Right.
build my vision. And so yeah, I really love having smarter people around me, and they know. I think it's in the way that I communicate with them. They know that if I'm saying, "Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" It's all in the spirit of just kind of road testing these ideas before we actually start to move forward with them. And if I come up with an idea, I want them to say, "Hey, have you thought about this? I'm not sure that's going to work," because
Mhm.
if it's a strong idea, it should be able to survive someone trying to poke holes in it. You want someone to poke holes in your idea because two eyes are better than one, two minds are better than one. And so if someone's asking these tough questions and your idea survives those tough questions, then it's time to move on to the implementation phase.
It'd be kind of interesting to in your. I mean, it sounds like you've already done this, but like for people listening, in your culture, you can actually build in the fact that ideas will go through the hard question phase, and they should. Like every idea should be challenged, not because you're challenging the greatness of the idea, but you're making sure that if it can handle all those different angles, you're creating the best concept from a team perspective. You're all putting in your input to make it. So that's a kind of a really amazing suggestion that you could really add into your team building. But what I would love to do, Jack, just for a second here, is just pause and let you guys in the audience, if you have any questions, I know people have been coming in and out, but if you guys have any questions for Jack or you have any thoughts as far as a direction you want us to talk more about, be happy to do it. We have about 10, 15 minutes here. Um, Amy says getting buy-in from your team will help the implementation be successful. 100%. I mean, the reason we hire a team in the first place is to have them help support the vision, like Jack said. And there shouldn't be anyone on your team that you don't want to listen to at any level in your company, because you probably should not hire them if they're not adding value in their individual level, even from a VA level. Like VA should have an ability to know how to run their job better than you. You shouldn't be like, if you're the one creating how everything should always run in every specific situation, then you are hiring the wrong person. That's how I feel about it, at least.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. But
Yep.
but yeah. So talk to me about where you are right now with Deadline Funnel. Where is it at? Where are you guys going? What's exciting and upcoming?
Yeah, so we just came out with a whole bunch of new releases. So we're continuing to innovate and to really improve the user interface. We're also just this morning we were talking about different types of new infrastructure things that we can test out to really expand our capacity, because the software is growing and growing and growing in terms of users and popularity. So we're that's what our focus is on. So on the marketing side, my focus is on building a more reliable traffic channel. So one of the challenges that we've had recently is that we're doing all this advertising, but sometimes it's difficult to really truly track dollar for dollar return on ad spend. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that we're doing is we're going to be right this morning we set up new special plans that anyone who goes in this plan, we know that they came from a certain channel. And
Nice.
so between that and various different tracking platforms, that should be able to triangulate it in. But for us, that's been a real struggle because we've tried things like Mixpanel, we've tried Google Analytics, and you get metrics, but nothing. It doesn't seem like there's been any one holy grail to be able to say, okay, yeah, we know we spent this much money, and here's how much money came back from this particular channel. So we're getting that dialed in. From the client growth side, a lot of it's going to go into education. So I'm putting a lot of attention into education, creating additional videos, doing additional webinars, hiring more people. Right now, we're hiring more team members to handle live chat. And so there's a big investment that we put in the first month or two of someone joining our team so that they really truly understand and can provide support. Because when our clients come to us in live chat, they're not asking like, "Hey, how do I reset my password?" They're asking really complicated questions that have to do with all the different types of landing page providers and all the different email service providers, and then all the different types of funnels. If you imagine all the different combinations and permutations, every single chat is a different combination of those. And so someone on our team has to know that. So, for example, in some ways, I'm envious of the situation that you guys have, and maybe I don't fully appreciate everything you guys deal with. But your platform is kind of self-contained. I know that you integrate with these other platforms, but it's like our Deadline Funnel, and you and I have been talking about this offline, is that Deadline Funnel actually would integrate with Demio. And so it would be integrating with Demio and their email service provider. And so ours is kind of this glue in between these different things. So we have to know, like, the more platforms that come online, the more email service providers that come online, we have to know all these different systems. And so that's a complicated challenge. And so there's a lot of effort that we put into training.
Can I ask you real fast? Because this is a question that would really interest me is, when you're doing training and stuff for your team, what kind of things have you learned work best, and how are you doing them with your team, and how do you scale that?
So the first thing that we do with new customer service reps is that we have them go through and actually create a Deadline Funnel using. So we have logins to pretty much every landing. That's the other downside, is that I have to have these subscriptions to pretty much every tool out there. So we'll have them go through and actually create a Deadline Funnel for a certain landing page provider, email service provider. We have them go through sort of the 80-20, the most popular versions of those. And so after they do 5 to 10 of those, and we get their feedback of where they got stuck and those sorts of things, they kind of know the specific details of those systems, but also the general process. Then we have them sit in on our onboarding calls. So we do free 15-minute onboarding calls, which is another thing that a lot of companies don't do. So we'll just have them. Yep. But a lot of companies don't, or you have to pay for it. And so what we do is we have them sit in on the onboarding calls so they can hear the questions, and they don't have to be under pressure to answer them, but they hear how, not just what the answer is, but how we ask more questions, and just the process that we go through to help the client. So it's a lot of hands-on. Go ahead and jump in the pool, see how it goes, and we're here to help if you need it. So it's a lot of hands-on work, and a lot of them just getting their hands dirty and jumping in.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And I think we're gonna be doing something similar. I really like that idea. And I always felt the opposite. I'm like, we're envious of you guys because it seems like there's so much less things that can happen, because a webinar just has a million things that can always happen on them. So our support is pretty robust as well. But listen, we're kind of wrapping up here. So if anyone has any questions, guys, pop them in. Otherwise, we'll kind of end today, Jack. What I would love to know is, you've done about 5 softwares, 6, I don't even know, probably a lot more than that you haven't even listed or told me about. But you've done a lot in your career, obviously still learning and growing. If you were to create, and you're going to start another company here this year, what lessons would you take to it, and what would you do to get started if you're building a SaaS company here in 2017 from scratch?
Yeah, so I know that you covered this in your conversation with Kyle Graham, but it bears repeating. The lesson would be to do as much early testing and minimum viable product, minimum viable funnel as possible. There's a book that I read recently that I don't hear enough people talking about. It's got a really weird title, but I recommend it for anyone who wants to be able to ask questions of people and get to the truth of the early investigation of whether a marketplace has a problem worth solving. And the title of the book is The Mom Test, MOM, next word TEST, the Mom Test. And so the concept behind the book is that if you come up with this brilliant idea and you go ask your mom, like if you go tell your mom, like, hey, this is my idea and I'm going to build this app and it's going to be amazing. What is she going to say? She's going to say, oh dear, that's wonderful. You're going to make millions with it. Like, she says that because, and this is true of friends or of our peers, like, people want you to succeed. And so they're saying very positive things to you, but you're not getting to the heart of, do you have a problem? Are you currently spending money on the problem? How much is the problem costing you in time and energy? And so this book talks about how to ask people the right questions. And it kind of boils down to asking them what they already are doing versus what they would buy. Like, don't ask them about what they would do in the future. Like, would you buy this? Do you think this is a good idea? Those sorts of things. You want to ask them about what are you doing right now, and when you're trying to X, Y, Z. How much are you spending? How many tools are you using? What are you paying for those tools? Those sorts of things. So that's kind of the basics of that. But just zooming back out to where you ask the question, the idea would be to get early validation and then get ongoing validation before you dive in. You don't want to go into what's called stealth mode and spend 6 to 12 months building something only to find out later, nobody wants it, or I veered off in the wrong direction. So getting that early validation.
I've definitely made that mistake. That was one of the first things I did when I got into SaaS did this stealth one. I think that's one of the things that most people do. So that's amazing advice, Jack. And you guys heard it from Jack himself. Make sure you're doing this. It doesn't matter if you're in SaaS. I wouldn't even say it doesn't matter if you're in SaaS. MVP for products, for services. Understand if you have a minimum economical viable product. Will people pay for this service? Are you solving enough of a pain point? These are really important questions to understand for business, and make sure that you're talking to the right people. You can't talk to friends, family, colleagues. I mean, you can talk to them about the idea, but maybe for some feedback. But I think initially, if you want to really get any validation on a business or product, you need to talk to real customers. And sometimes initially it can be uneasy. It's outside of your comfort zone. You're either cold calling or you're trying to find those people. And I know early on, I don't know about you, but we did a lot of one-on-one calls with people just to try to learn about, like, we cold emailed a bunch of people and just got on phone calls and tried to learn pain points and stuff like that. So sometimes it's those points, the uneasy moments, that give you the best results. But I think that's fabulous feedback. Jack, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No. This was a lot of fun. We covered chapters of my journey that I haven't shared elsewhere. So this was a fun trip down memory lane, and I hope some of the lessons I learned were valuable.
That's awesome. I learned a lot of stuff. This was a great call, seriously. So really want to thank you so much for taking some time today and meeting with us, man. It's an absolute pleasure. And for all you guys, we're talking about possibly getting an integration together with DeadlineFunnel, so you guys could possibly have timers inside of your webinar campaigns in Demio and your Live replays. So it's really exciting. We love what they're doing. Definitely go check out DeadlineFunnel.io. You guys are all amazing for joining us today. So thank you, everyone, for coming out, as always, on Tuesdays. We'll see you guys later.
One correction.
Yes, please.
DeadlineFunnel.com.
I don't know why I have .io in my head.
That's okay.
DeadlineFunnel.com.
That's all right.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.